Hey everybody, Chris, the old-ass retro gamer here. Today is part 2 of the Star Wars Games Special. Last time, I focused on the bad. Today, it's all about the rad. So just like the previous video, I have 6 Star Wars games to showcase today. I've loved some of these games for a long time, and I still sing their praises even years down the road, and for good reason, because they are kind of awesome. I want to say once again that these are my picks and mine alone. My selections are based on my experiences with these games. If you see a game that you don't like in this list, I'm sorry. Don't get all Kylo Ren on my ass. Okay? Okay, to start, this game surprised the living hell out of me. I thought the concept, when it was first announced, sounded pretty amazing, but because of my feelings toward the prequels, which I was not a fan of at all, in any way, shape, or form, tainted my opinion of Star Wars for quite a long time, and unfortunately some of that spilled off onto this game, so I was hesitant to purchase it at first, but the reviews were favorable, and a couple of my friends had purchased it and told me that it was worthwhile, so I went through with it. Turns out I absolutely loved it. The Force Unleashed. If there's one thing that's been missing from a lot of Star Wars games, it's that you never really get a feeling of how powerful the Force really is. Sure, you can mind control somebody here and force throw somebody there and use a lightsaber. This game went completely bonkers with the concept, and that is amazing. How many games do you know of where you can take down an entire Star Destroyer without even really touching it? Pick up TIE fighters, crush them, throw them at people. You can toss characters into each other. You can jump great distances. You can do crazy lightsaber shenanigans. Use chain lightning. And that's what made this game so unbelievably fun for me. It doesn't hurt that the story is also kind of amazing. I love the opening cinematic where Darth Vader kills the main character's father when he's a child, and the kid picks up the lightsaber and actually threatens Vader with it. That geeked me out to no end. The gameplay can be kind of wonky here and there. Some of the combinations you got to use button-wise is kind of There was a lot of great DLC. You can unlock a lot of different lightsaber colors. I loved the black blade with the white glow. Shazbot, goddamn. And there's 2 different endings. One is a good ending and one is a bad ending. We did get a sequel to this game, and while it wasn't as good and as well made and plotted as this one was, it was still a lot of fun. You get to do a lot of off-the-wall stuff. Honestly, it's just as fun as this, but this one, just story-wise and everything, it's great, seriously. Next up isn't 1, it isn't 2, it's 3 games. Why? Because they're all basically the same game, just split up into 3 parts. They all play the same, they all look the same, they all feel the same. It's a cohesive whole. Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, and Super Return of the Jedi. There were Star Wars games that came out long before these. None of them really gave you the experience of feeling like you were playing the movies until these came out, and these just completely rocked my world when I was a teenager. Sure, they take some liberties. Outside of coming across some Jawas and some sand people, what really happened on Tatooine with Luke? So yeah, we're gonna have him fight some Sarlacc creature bosses and womp rats all over the joint. Honestly, I didn't mind, because the music, which was like these really cool 16-bit versions of the John Williams music, was blasting through my speakers. The graphics are really cool, really well animated, everything controlled really well. These games are hard as balls, and each one of these games escalated a little bit with the abilities that you could use with the Force, culminating in Return of the Jedi, fighting the Emperor. Damn. Side-scrolling platformers with a lot of combat, kind of like Contra with a lightsaber. There's always 3D combat scenes where you're in a vehicle, like snow speeders in Empire Strikes Back, or a land speeder in the original Star Wars. I love the Millennium Falcon scenes in Return of the Jedi. Everything about these games is just really fun, really well thought out. If you plan on collecting any Star Wars games for your video game collection, these should be the first ones you consider, because these are freaking amazeballs. I know. My next choice can be kind of controversial because it's either a love it or hate it situation with this game, and personally I love it, otherwise it wouldn't be on this list. Shadows of the Empire. If you remember my worst gaming experiences video, I was talking about how I had pre-ordered this to go along with my Nintendo 64 when it was first released. Didn't get it. It was delayed almost a year from the original release date, which kind of sucked. But turned out this was the savings grace for the Nintendo 64 in my eyes. Couldn't stand Mario 64, I couldn't stand Pilotwings 64, but this game, on the other hand, it's based off of a book that takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I don't even think this is considered canon anymore, because the book kind of sucked. This game is leaps and bounds over that book. Dash Rendar is not that bad of a character. He's no Kyle Katarn, but he's not too bad. I love the Outrigger. It's a pretty cool ship. Sure, the control isn't exactly good. When Dash jumps, he's kind of like floaty. It takes him a while to land. The Nintendo 64 controller isn't all that great to begin with, so it's kind of hard to get him to turn on a dime when you need him to shoot someone that's behind him. It takes about a level and a half for you to get used to the controls and really get a good feel for them. And then once you do, this game really takes off. It's a 3D action game where you run around on Hoth, and you're taking out AT-STs with your pistol. There's a really awesome recreation of the Battle of Hoth with the AT-ATs and the snow speeders. There's a speeder bike chase scene. The gameplay changes up quite a bit, and that's what I think I really loved about this game when I first played it. And it doesn't hurt that they were able to sample the original soundtrack that Joel McNeely made for the book. And it gets you amped up to do all the crazy stuff in this game. I love the final level when you're trying to take out the Skyhook. That is so much fun, and I love that piece of music that they chose. And I did not mind that it was on this like 30-second loop over and over again. It didn't bug me at all because I like it that much. I know this isn't a really popular game with some gamers because nowadays, even back then, the graphics did look kind of poopy. But it always will hold a special place in my heart because this was the game that made me want to play my Nintendo 64. There weren't many games that made me do that.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
So you know how the Super Nintendo games covered the entire original trilogy in its own separate game? Well, what if there was one game that covered all three movies? Star Wars Trilogy, Apprentice of the Force. This is like that one Star Wars game that nobody really seems to know about. You play as Luke Skywalker. The whole game is from his point of view, from the beginning of the original movie to the ending of Return of the Jedi. And Luke changes over the course of those three movies. It's pretty cool. His outfits will change, his powers will evolve. It's a side-scrolling platforming action game. There's a lot of gunplay, and then finally you do get your lightsabers. You can have lightsaber duels like crazy. The ones with Vader are really tough. If there was one company that really knew what to do with Star Wars on the handhelds, it was Ubisoft. They did a version of Revenge of the Sith for the Game Boy Advance that turned out to be a pretty fun little game, despite the fact that it was based on one of the prequel movies. I spit in your general direction. But you get to play through all the classic scenes in this game. The animation is phenomenal. The graphics are good. They're just slightly below what you would expect from a Super Nintendo game, but their animations are just smooth and fluid and pretty impressive for a Game Boy Advance game. Even the music is pretty impressive, which is like BitTunes versions of Star Wars scores. As good as the graphics and sound are, it would suck if the gameplay were not as fine as it is, and it is pretty great. Everything's really fine-tuned. If you screw something up, it's your fault, not the game's fault. A lot of the times that I died in the game, it was always because I just was not fast enough or quick enough, or I did something really stupid. It is not a perfect game. There are some levels which are really tedious. Just like in the Super Nintendo games, there's stuff that really didn't have anything to do with the movies mixed in, but it's not too bad. I highly recommend this game. As of right now, it is not too expensive, so if you really want to get a copy, now would be the time, and you will not regret it.
You must do what you feel is right, of course.
Next up is a game that's a sequel to a Nintendo 64 game. You probably know what it is already. I don't even need to say the name. Rogue Leader Rogue Squadron 2! As much as I liked Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64, turns out that Nintendo 64 was like the home of the really good Star Wars games because the ones that were available on the PlayStation usually were not that great. But anyway, Rogue Leader improves on it in every single way. Of course, the graphics have been improved because the GameCube can do graphics that are way in advance of what the Nintendo 64 ever could dream of. There's yet again another Hoth level. It's like a mainstay in all of these games. Every Star Wars game that came out, I think after Shadows of the Empire, because it pulled that scene off so well, it had to be mixed into every single Star Wars game at some point. And they're usually pretty good. This one is no different. It's a Wing Commander-esque space shooter. You get to play as any friggin' vehicle in the Rebel Alliance that you can imagine. There's some missions that deal directly with scenarios from the movies, and there's some that have nothing to do with it. Well, actually, that's most of them. But this game controls like a dream. It's one of the finest spaceship simulator type games that I've ever played. Like I said, it controls great, it looks fantastic, the music is amazing, obviously, because it's the John Williams music directly from the source. not like some weird chiptunes version. It just creates this really great ambiance that just completely encapsulates you in the world. It is also really, really difficult. And I'm not exaggerating this. This game is hard as hell. A friend of mine who's been playing this game on and off since it came out finally beat the game like a couple of months ago. This game came out in 2001. He beat it in 2015. 14 years in the making. Win. Doesn't make it any less fun, though. This game is amazing. I love it. When I got back into collecting again a couple of years ago, when I said I was going to start collecting for the GameCube, this was the first game I bought. That says something. I had to have this in my collection even though I didn't even own a damn GameCube yet. Because the moment I did get a GameCube, this was going to be the first game I popped into it.
Do or do not.
And my last awesome Star Wars game. An image of it briefly flashed by on my top 10 games of all time video. So if you've seen that, you know what game this is. Jedi Outcast Jedi Knight 2. Out of all of the games ever made for every console that had the Star Wars license, this is always going to be my favorite. I don't think anything has topped it since. It's weird trying to figure out where this game fits in amongst everything because there was Dark Forces, which was a first-person shooter in the Star Wars universe, and then there was Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, and then there was Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. What happened to Dark Forces? I don't know. I don't care, because this came about because of it, and it is amazing. It is a first-person shooter, sometimes. You play as Kyle Katarn, who is one of the most famous expanded universe characters out there. I don't even think he's considered canon anymore either, which is a damn shame, because I would love to see him in one of the movies. He's a smuggler, much like Han Solo. He works for the Rebellion, and he's a Jedi. In training. When you're using guns or grenades and all that sort of things, it is a traditional first-person shooter, and a very good one at that. It is a ton of fun. You know, the controls are really tight, so it's kind of like this really crazy amped-up Doom with Force abilities. But once you get a lightsaber, it goes into third-person mode, and that's where the game really takes off. Because you just annihilate wave after wave of stormtroopers and whatnot. You can use force lightning, mind tricks, force pushes, all that stuff. The graphics are great, the sound is great, the music is awesome. Because it's John Williams! The missions are really cool. The villain in this game is fantastic. There's a 2-player mode with split screen so you can have lightsaber duels with your friends. If they're in your house, you can't do online stuff. Come on, look at the time period this game came out. No. But it really feels like you're playing an interactive Star Wars movie. It is very cinematic. The atmosphere is perfect. It covers you like a blanket. It's a cozy, comfy blanket that's comprised of polygons and some iffy voice acting. But this is like the precursor to The Force Unleashed because this is the first time you really got to feel what it was like to wield the Force in offensive ways. It goes to the extreme in Force Unleashed, and that's pretty much that game's bread and butter. But here was the first time you really got a taste of it, and it works. I can't praise this game enough. It is my all-time favorite Star Wars game. I could play it any old time. I've played through it multiple times, trying to do speed runs and stuff like that, trying to figure out different ways to do the missions. Sometimes I try not to use my lightsaber, but this game is just nothing but fun from the beginning to the end. Even though the final boss battle is kind of a cakewalk, which I thought was really disappointing. But outside of that, this game is almost flawless. You need to have it, you need to own it, you need to live it!
Just let it in.
And those are my 6 favorite Star Wars games. Every single one of those games is a ton of fun, and I highly recommend you pick them up if you haven't already. And I'd say pick them up while you can, because I suspect once The Force Awakens comes out, some of these games are going to be hot commodities. Hypothesis. But anyway, have you yourself played all these games? Have you been thinking about picking some of them up? Didn't have the right motivation? I hope I helped you out a little bit. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you that clicks that play button. I appreciate you even more if you clicked on that subscribe button. And if you feel so inclined, give the video a thumbs up. Or 2. I don't think you can. Just the one. Just the one? Just, okay. So comment on the video. Comment as much as you like, because I want to hear from you. Do you love these games? Do you hate these games? Which games are your favorite Star Wars games of all time? Which ones do you really despise? Are you like, Chris, why'd you put that Shadows of the Empire in there? That game is poo. Because I like it. What are your 6 favorite Star Wars games? I want to know. I really do. I wouldn't ask if I didn't want to hear it. So also, share the video on all the social medias. Spread the word about the old-ass retro gamer. Takes 3 seconds to hit that share button. I'm doing the Jedi mind trick on you right now. You will share this video on Facebook. My eyes are drying out. Don't forget, I'm still going to do a Q&A video, so if you have a question you would like to ask me, leave it in the comments with the title Q&A, and I will definitely add it to the list. So until next time, I'm Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, saying, may the Force be with you. Shit explodes! Awesome Star Wars title screen! Blah. Yeah, I'm geeking out. For good reason. These games are awesome. First try.